All right, so you know how we always dig into these global happenings, right? The kind of things that fly under the radar, but actually have a massive impact on the world. Well, today's a prime example of that. We've got this report from Eritrea Focus. It came out on March 11th, 2025. And it lays out this possible scenario where Saudi Arabia pumps billions of dollars into the port of Assab in Eritrea.
Oh, yeah. And this is much bigger than just building some new docks or cranes. This is about a potential shakeup of the whole power structure in the Horn of Africa. We're talking maritime trade routes, Ethiopia's ambitions. It's got huge implications.
No kidding. So today we're going to unpack all of that, the impact on the Red Sea corridor, the power shifts, what it means for countries like Ethiopia and Somaliland. It's this wild mix of economics and geopolitics.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's jump in. Saudi Arabia, right? They're thinking about dropping billions into Assab. What's the strategic play here?
Well, the fascinating thing is that it puts them right on the map in the Horn of Africa. We've seen other global players, the UAE, Turkey, even China, making moves in the Red Sea for a while now. Investments, partnerships, the whole deal.
Yeah.
But this move by Saudi Arabia, this is a direct challenge to that. They want to be a major player in this region. It's clear.
Yeah. It's more than just adding some capacity to the port, right? The report calls it a strategic realignment, which sounds pretty serious. What does that actually mean in this context?
It's about alliances changing, power dynamics shifting. You've got Saudi Arabia with a ton of resources, a huge interest in keeping the Red Sea safe for shipping. They're looking to flex their influence. And investing in Assab, well, that gives them a concrete foothold, somewhere strategic.
Right.
It's about securing their trade, maybe gaining some leverage in the region's politics. It's a power play.
Okay, so let's shift gears to Ethiopia for a second. They're landlocked under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Access to the sea is, well, kind of essential for them. The report says they see Eritrean ports as vital. They've even, hinted at military action to secure that access, which is a pretty intense situation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For Ethiopia, getting to the sea reliably is everything. For their economy, for trade. The fact that they've even thought about using force shows you just how important this is. Now, if Saudi Arabia throws its weight behind Assad, that changes the whole game for Ethiopia.
So how so? In what ways could this Saudi investment affect Ethiopia's access to the Red Sea?
A few big ways. First, a big Saudi investment. It's going to make Eritrea's economy a lot stronger, right? So they're a tougher, more resilient partner. Then we can see a security upgrade in Assad. The report doesn't go into detail, but more naval presence, joint exercises, maybe even new tech for port security. Suddenly, any military move by Ethiopia becomes a lot riskier, a lot more costly. Saudi Arabia's presence basically acts as a big "don't mess with us" sign.
Right. So could this whole partnership change the way Ethiopia and Eritrea deal with each other about port access? Could it force them to negotiate, or will it just make things more tense?
I'd say it pushes them toward talking.
Mm-hmm.
By backing Eritrea, Saudi Arabia takes away some of Ethiopia's leverage. They can't just throw their weight around anymore. They have to sit down with a stronger Eritrea, backed by Saudi Arabia, and figure things out diplomatically.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about Eritrea for a moment. What do they get out of this besides the obvious money? What are the benefits of aligning themselves so closely with Saudi Arabia?
For Eritrea, it's a massive security boost. The report highlights that, they're basically protected against Ethiopia's potential military ambitions. Their control over Assab is reinforced. It's a big deal in a region that can be pretty unstable. Plus, this partnership raises their profile in the Horn of Africa, makes them a more serious player.
So it's not just about the money. It's about solidifying their place in this complex region. Now, earlier we talked about those other global players. How might they react? What about the UAE specifically? They've got their own investments in Berbera. Do they just reevaluate, or could we see some action?
That's the million-dollar question. The UAE has put a lot of resources into Berbera, and they've got a few options. They might just double down on their investment there, make it even more attractive, expand the infrastructure to compete, or they might start looking for other ports in the region, split the risk in case Assab becomes the dominant port. And of course, there's always diplomacy. Strengthening their existing partnerships could be another move.
Makes sense. And what about Somaliland? They've got their own ambitions with Berbera, backed by the UAE. How could this Assab development impact them?
The report talks about a couple of possibilities. On the one hand, a souped-up Assab could pull trade and investment away from Berbera, especially if Assab offers lower prices or becomes a major hub. But on the other hand, all this geopolitical tension, it could actually make having multiple friendly ports a good thing. More options, more security for trade, more resilience for the whole region.
So it's like a safety net, having different port options available. Now, remember that agreement between Somaliland and Ethiopia, the one about potential mutual recognition and cooperation? Big news at the time. Could this Saudi-Eritrea thing throw a wrench in that?
It could, definitely. If Ethiopia feels like they're losing out on access to the Red Sea because of this partnership, they might rethink their priorities. That includes their agreements with Somaliland. If they're desperate for port access and Eritrea is not an option, they'll need to either get closer to Somaliland or find entirely new roads. Then again, feeling squeezed might make them even more determined to solidify that relationship with Somaliland as a backup plan. It's a tricky situation.
So it seems like the Red Sea is becoming even more of a hot spot, right? This potential move by Saudi Arabia is another sign of that.
Yeah, 100%. The Red Sea is a crucial road for global trade. Any major change there has ripple effects around the world. Saudi Arabia going into Assad, plus how everyone else reacts, will shape the future of the whole region. The politics, the economics, everything. It's a fluid situation, and things could get really interesting.
Okay, so let's bring it all together. The bottom line is Saudi Arabia putting billions into Assad isn't just business, it's strategic. It could completely change who holds the power in the Horn of Africa in that crucial Red Sea trade route. Ethiopia's plans are affected, and all the other players have to adjust their strategies.
Exactly. And it makes you think, right? If there's this much competition for control in important maritime zones like the Red Sea, what other surprising alliances or investments might pop up? And what will that mean in the long run for global trade, for security, even for the sovereignty of the countries involved?
Big questions. It really drives home the point that events that seem local can have huge global consequences. It's all connected. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive. It's been a fascinating conversation.
My pleasure.
We'll be back soon with more analysis on global developments.
Looking forward to it.